What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, HawgSports.com. Today, we're going to talk Arkansas, Georgia Southern. We got Curtis Wilkerson's joining us. Keith Grayson is also joining us. Curtis is going to talk a little bit about Razorback basketball recruiting because there's been some stuff going on with that. Keith Grayson was at the game, and we're going to answer your questions as well. All that and more on Hog Sports Live. Man, almost forgot what I was doing there. This is your Arkansas versus Georgia Southern primer. Obviously, this is a big game for Arkansas just because it's a tricky spot. I mean, let's be honest. Arkansas has Texas and Texas A&M, and then there's this tricky option team right in the middle, this triple option squad in Georgia Southern who, despite losing to FAU last week, 38-6, despite that, they still have a pretty good squad and program. I think they're 26-12 the last 3 years or so under Chad Lunsford. So it's a tricky opponent. Even though last week they're getting their quarterback back. It's a tricky opponent, and especially for how it falls in the schedule. There's no way to replicate what happened with Arkansas last week against Texas. So you got to find ways to make sure your guys are still up. Arkansas right now is 6th in the country. 6th in the SEC and the SEC football power rankings for week 2. Is it a bit of a jump ahead? Do they deserve to be 6? Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of schools in the SEC that are doing some good things right now. So it's good to see Arkansas there right now at 6 after a big win over Texas. Now, before we get started, I want to remind you there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. You can always tune in to Facebook Live. Be sure to follow the page if you haven't done so already. Also available on YouTube. Throw us a thumbs up there if you haven't done so already. Like the page, share, comment, all of those good things. Also available on Apple Podcasts. Throw us that 5-star review if you haven't done so, and let people know what to think of the show. Also available on Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. HawgSports, can't talk today. HawgSports is just $1 right now for your first month, or 30% off for your first year at HawgSports.com. So 6th in the latest power rankings on 24/7 Sports. ESPN did a deal where they, are dissecting, I guess, the biggest misconceptions, I guess, or takes from week 2. And for Arkansas, the take is, and I didn't do one for every school, but Arkansas is the second best team in the SEC West. I mean, I think that there are a lot of schools jumbled up there right now. I mean, if you look at Ole Miss, they're ranked 17th. Mississippi State beat North Carolina State. Nice win. Auburn has put, 102 points up so far, over 60 points in both games. I mean, I know who they've played, but you don't just destroy a team like that unless you've got some good offense. You don't just put up 60. It's hard to do. So LSU is LSU. I mean, Texas A&M is Texas A&M. They lost their quarterback. It's going to be a big matchup next weekend, obviously. So are they the best team in the West? According to this article, it's just good that Arkansas is being mentioned in that conversation, but they say no. Too early to tell. Arkansas got some big recruiting news with Anthony Brown, a guy that we've been waiting on for a while. He had an initial decision date, pushed it back a little bit. 6 foot, 185 pounds, had Alabama, Auburn, Miami, Michigan State, Oregon, Tennessee, Wisconsin. Pretty long list, actually, of possible destinations he could have ended up at. So it's a nice addition. It puts Arkansas at number 17th in the nation in recruiting. Pretty solid defensive back class when you consider Jalen Lewis out of Brownsville, Tennessee, Miles Rouser, a 4-star out of Michigan. And Danny has some nice breakdowns just about how Arkansas has done recruiting defensive backs lately, because there was a stretch there from like 2011 to 2017 where they didn't sign any 4-star defensive backs. Tevin Mitchell was like the last one. And then suddenly there's like 6 of them that they've signed or gotten commitments from. So definitely picked steam up here. Anthony Brown's not a 4-star, but he's the number 513 overall ranked prospect in the country. I think if you talk to a lot of like scouts and analysts at 24/7 Sports, they'll tell you guys in that 87 range or higher, are guys that they really, if you build a recruiting class with a bunch of guys like that, then that's going to be a pretty good class, even though it's not a lot of 4-stars. He's a .8776 on the composite and 88 overall on 24/7 Sports, which has him the number 33 safety and the number 12 player overall in Tennessee. So pretty solid accolades for him, and a really nice offer list for Anthony Brown also. He committed on September 14th. As far as like the next level, there's a lot of mock drafts and stuff like that coming out. We're just going to get through a few of these housekeeping things that I think that are interesting. CBS Sports has Treylon Burks going number 18th overall to the New Orleans Saints. And the highest I've seen him so far is Mel Kiper had him 12th on their big board on ESPN. So CBS has him 18th. ESPN has him 12th right now. Grant Morgan named Bednarik National Player of the Week. Heck of an honor. What do you have, 13.5 tackles? 2.5 tackles for loss, half sack, which is interesting because Hayden Henry was, I think, Walter Camp Defensive Player of the Week and SEC Defensive Player of the Week, and then we know Cam Little was Freshman of the Week. So a lot of awards being distributed. And, kind of as we talked about with that Texas game, there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game, and it was heavily watched. And there just weren't a lot of great games last week. And we'll get into the games that are coming up this weekend because there are some better ones. I'll tell you another thing here. Suddenly, Arkansas goes from not being projected to go to a bowl on this list. Brad Crawford might have had him going somewhere, but I don't know that he did. But suddenly they're in the Citrus Bowl. They also went from 11th to 6th in that SEC power ranking. So Arkansas is a Citrus Bowl. Would you take it right now? Yes, you would. If I told you get a ticket to the Citrus Bowl for Arkansas versus Michigan, who they got them set up against, you'd absolutely take it right now. There's so much with everything that's going on with Arkansas. You're getting Sam Pittman is kind of becoming a bit of a darling around the country. You go to other teams' message board, they're talking about Arkansas, what Sam Pittman has done. You go to Texas A&M message board, and there's this absurd thread started about Sam Pittman being on the radar for the USC job, like he's going to go take the USC job out where he's never been, never recruited. He fits in perfectly here. The whole discussion around Sam Pittman is the fit that he is at Arkansas, and he said numerous times that this will be his last coaching job at Arkansas, 59-year-old Sam Pittman, but he's going to go take the USC job. And then everybody responding in the thread is kind of like, almost like it's a done deal. Like, I don't know if they're just doing that to mess with Arkansas recruiting or something, but probably I would hope so because the very idea is absurd. But Pittman's getting a lot of credit from people because he's authentic. They love his authenticity. I would argue that everybody's authentic. It's just, what kind of authentic are you? You going to tell me that Nick Saban is like buttering up the crowd and that's not how he really is? I mean, Nick Saban is unapologetically Nick Saban. That is Nick Saban. If you're faking it, that shines through too, and that's you. That's authentic. You're a big fake. If you're a big fake, you're authentic. Unless you're like some incredible narcissist, psychopath, sociopath, something that's fooling everybody. Maybe you're so talented and I don't know, but like Dexter or something. But unless you're like that, then you're probably coming off exactly how you are. The big fake, a big phony, genuine, caring, intense. You're authentic. People see you how they see you. I want to say this too about Arkansas's current situation, and it's Chad Morris deserves some credit. You didn't think I was going to say that, do you? And I'm not talking about the recruiting aspect of it because I do think that they did a good job bringing some key players in here. I'm not saying just that. But I'm saying that Arkansas was so down, these players were beaten down so far, starving for something. Starving for the right guy to come in here. So the right guy did come in, and they latch on extra hard, dying to buy in because of where Chad Morris had this program. So Chad Morris deserves credit. Without the sour, the sweet ain't as sweet, right? He brought the program down so far that the players in the program were dying, starving. It reminds me of a story from Coach Toddy down at Rising that Danny West told me. I love this story. So Coach Toddy's a little boy telling this story to his team to pump them up, right? And he says, there's this dog that's coming around the neighborhood stealing Roscoe's bowl, stealing the food out of his bowl. He's putting it everywhere, trying to hide it from the other dog. The dog jumps the fence, all that kind of stuff. Anything it can do to get the food, and Roscoe can't do anything about it. It goes, "Daddy, this dog coming around the neighborhood, he's stealing Roscoe's food, and I can't keep it away from him." And he said, "Well, son, you stay away from that dog. That dog's mean." "But, Daddy, ain't our dog mean too?" "Yeah, but that dog's starving." Be the starving dog, Arkansas. Be the starving dog this weekend. That's what I think Arkansas players have been. They've been starving for the right guy to come in and take this program over. And when he did, they latched on extra hard. They bought in extra hard because they were starving. Love that story from Coach Toddy. Danny's from Rising, by the way. So, let's look at some games this weekend real quick before we get into Arkansas's game against Georgia Southern. Number 20, Arkansas in the AP poll. Number 24 in the coaches, and number 18 in the ESPN FPI. 11 o'clock, you got Nebraska, Oklahoma. That's intriguing. That's in a morning game. For a morning game, that's one reason Oklahoma wants out. Probably the Big 12 because they got to play these 11 o'clock games. Virginia Tech at West Virginia, 15 Virginia Tech. Michigan State at number 24 Miami. Alabama at Florida. In the swamp. Florida's lost 7 times. I thought on Paul Feinbaum yesterday, I caught a little bit of that, but one of the best comments was that Tim Tebow has retired from football 3 times since Florida last beat Alabama. FSU at Wake. How will FSU respond after last weekend? Mississippi State at Memphis. That's the key part there. At Memphis. South Carolina at Georgia. South Carolina traditionally has played Georgia tough, although you got a different coach there in Shane Beamer. And Georgia, you got to like Georgia's chances there. Auburn, which again has played a pretty easy schedule so far, but they're ranked 22nd at number 10 Penn State for a whiteout. Penn State, which beat Wisconsin like 16-10 or something, then crushed Ball State 44-13. Virginia at 6:30. These are night games. 6:30 Auburn, 6:30 Virginia at North Carolina, which is 22nd. Here's an interesting one. 7 Tulane at 7 o'clock. Tulane at number 17 Ole Miss. And the reason it's interesting is because Tulane lost to Oklahoma 40-35. Had a chance to beat them. And then Tulane beat Morgan State. I know who. But they still, 69-20, put up 69 points. So they got some offense. That's an interesting battle. Now, I think Ole Miss is going to win. I think all of us do. But it might be interesting to watch. Could be a lot of offense in that game. It's at 7 o'clock, too. So you watch the Arkansas game, then you can tune into Ole Miss. Or you can watch Rice and Texas in the losers bracket. Super late for me. The only reason this is really intriguing is Arizona State at BYU because it's at 9:30 at night. I'll be getting close to done with all my game day responsibilities. 11:30 San Jose State and the Fighting Nick Starkles at Hawaii. Might catch that one. 11:30. Might catch that. Might be interesting to watch. Now getting to Arkansas's. Well, let's jump ahead real quick next week because the Texas A&M game has been scheduled. It's the 2:30 game, so that means it's the top game in CBS's minds. The 2:30 game, number 20 Arkansas versus number 7 Texas A&M. Arkansas is technically the home team in Arlington. Saturday, September 25th at 2:30 on CBS. AT&T Stadium. Both teams are 2-0. Haynes King will be out of this one. Now, I just want to flip ahead real quick and talk about this team because I've focused on the Georgia Tech offense a little more, and Curtis has focused more on the defense, and we're going to get to him to talk about the defense. But they're 1-1, obviously. They've got Louisiana up next, so no easy weeks. Chad Lunsford is 26-15, went 10-3 in 2018 and 8-5 last year. So yeah, they got beat pretty good, 38-6 to FAU. But I mean, this is a program that is used to winning. Averaged 267.1 rushing yards, 104.15 passing yards last year, 27.2 points per game. Justin Tomlin's going to be back for this one. He's been suspended the last 2 games. Last season, he was 11 of 25. I think he played in 4 or 5 games, for 161 yards with 3 interceptions. Not a great passing statistics. He was 38 for 197 yards on the ground with a touchdown, 5.2 yards per carry. Cam Ransom, 188 pass yards. He's been 12 runs for 50 yards. That's the quarterback's been starting for him. At running back, they got Logan Wright, who goes 6 foot 230. Sam Pittman has said many times that he likes Logan Wright. 30 carries for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had 26 for 206 and 2 touchdowns last year. Is that right? Yeah. Gerald Green, who I actually like Gerald Green. He's got some breakaway speed. He's smaller, 5'9", 190. He's the top receiver on the team with 7 catches for 71 yards at running back. And he can break away. The offensive line across the front returns all 5 starters, including 4 seniors and a redshirt junior. That's important. 6'3", 297 average across the offensive front. Now, this offense is interesting. You hear triple option, so I think a lot of people think, well, is the wishbone? Are they going to be in an I, a dead T? What's going on? So most of the time they're going to be like in a shotgun, with like two running backs behind them. Like that's probably their most common formation. They'll run a shotgun with like an inverted wishbone, like with the shotgun, but inverted wishbone. They'll run that. They'll run like what looks like a fat I form. So they have the quarterback, and they'll have 2 fullbacks and a tailback behind him. But most of the time you're going to see, they'll also do like a regular, 4 wide with just, 1 running back behind the quarterback. But most of the time you're going to see the split backs that I mentioned, in shotgun with a sniffer at tight end. That's probably their most popular. They'll also do single back with a sniffer. Not a lot of motion. They'll do like some jet sweeps and fake jet sweep type stuff, but not a whole lot of motion before the snap. So that's pretty much what to expect out of their offense. But it's different than what you've seen at Arkansas recently. Also, I wanted to mention this on scheduling before we get to Curtis, but baseball schedule's out. Open the season against Illinois State in Fayetteville, February 18th through 20th. That's John Ridgerader. I can't remember the lady who came up with that one, but I thought that was the best one. There's the Ridge, the Fridge, the Fridgeway, the Ridgerader. That's a good one. I like that nickname for John Ridgeway. But Illinois State coming to Fayetteville February 18th to 20th. That was released today. You can go to HawgSports and look at the whole schedule. Arkansas, 23.5-point favorite. Over-under is 52.5. That's the game. All right, let's get to Curtis. For those of you who don't follow Curtis Wilkerson, you can follow him at Kurt Wilkerson. So why didn't y'all tell me I didn't have the how to watch stuff down? You can follow him at Kurt Wilkerson _ does a lot of great content for us at HawgSports, and especially basketball. When basketball season gets here, you're going to want Curtis Wilkerson's VIP coverage. Really happy to have him part of the team. Curtis,
hey, Trey.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing really good. And I want to talk to you, Curtis, about the Razorback offense versus the Georgia Southern defense a little bit. But first, before we get to that, just catch us up a little bit. What's going on with Razorback basketball recruiting? I know there were visitors and there's some information about Nick Smith. Just tell us a rundown of the key things that are happening right now with Razorback hoops.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot going on. It's pretty impressive that Arkansas football is ranked, and we've got so much conversation about basketball right now. Mm-hmm. But that's what you got to expect with Eric Musselman, I think. But yeah, Nick Smith Jr., 5-star guard out of North Little Rock. Coming into last weekend, there's a pretty strong belief that Alabama was actually in the lead there for him. And I know that's not what people wanted to hear, but we kind of maintained all along if Arkansas was able to get him on campus for his official visit, all bets are off at that point. And they did. And so he was in town for that Texas game. And, all indications since then from both sides of things are that visit went very well and that this race has tightened up significantly. So I think Arkansas is in a really good spot with Nick Smith, certainly a lot better than they were before last weekend, and we might hear something sooner rather than later there. So definitely some momentum swinging in the favor of the Razorbacks there.
Hey, how could that visit, though, Curtis, how could that visit not go well? Like, how could it not?
I mean, if you had to, kind of work up the recipe for the perfect, situation there, the perfect scenario, I mean, you had it. There's just no way to deny the impact that type of atmosphere can make. And, all the other visits he took, he's been to Alabama, Auburn, and, all these other places. But that was over the summer when there weren't any students on campus. And so you go from that to just probably one of the best atmospheres that, Fayetteville's ever had on a weekend. That's got to make an impact, and I think it did. So they need to make up a little bit of ground, and it sounds like they've done it. Is it going to be enough? We'll see, but definitely some optimism there on the Arkansas front. And then you turn the page to this weekend, and you got another 5-star rolling in, and Anthony Black, 6'7" wing out of Duncanville, Texas, a really strong program down there. He's kind of the headliner of what's going to be a pretty big visit list. They had 5 visitors last weekend, and we have 5 confirmed right now, 4 of those being unofficials. Anthony Black's is an official visit. And I think that list is going to grow quite a bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if they had double-digit visitors there on campus for the Georgia Southern game this weekend.
Curtis Wilkerson joining us again. Follow him at Kurt Wilkerson, and if you want his VIP recruiting coverage, you're going to need a $1 subscription right now to HawgSports.com, HAWG sports.com. So, Curtis, you've been first of all, what did you think of that? What did you think about that Texas game? Is that the best environment you've been in for a college football game, or what?
Oh, it hands down, it wasn't even close. And, I was actually thinking back, to the last Arkansas game that I actually attended in person. Obviously, we can only have one person in the press box last year, and attendance was down anyway with restrictions. And I was thinking back, like, man, when was the last time I've been to a game? It was San Jose State, Trey. So I needed that. I needed that just like the state did. But, yeah, that was incredible. It really was.
Mm-hmm. San Jose State was a rough one.
Ooh, yeah.
So I want to bring you up to this breakdown that you've done recently on Arkansas offense versus Georgia Southern defense. What do you see out of these guys, Curtis? Where are they strong?
Well, it's interesting. I saw obviously the Florida Atlantic score, and they lose 38-6 to FAU, and you're thinking, man, what's going on with these guys? And I turned on the game and watched it. And I'm about an hour in, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, okay, Georgia Southern's winning here 6-0. It's almost halftime. These guys don't look too bad. And really, the final 2 minutes of the first half and then the second half, the wheels just really fell off. But, for the longest there, they were hanging tough with a Florida Atlantic team that I thought showed really well the previous week against Florida. Defensively, definitely stronger against the run. They did a nice job against FAU in that first half. I think they held them to about 46 rushing yards on 19 carries. They're undersized, but they're quick. They got a couple guys along that defensive front that I like quite a bit. C.J. Wright being one of them. He's 6 foot, 285-pound nose tackle. I think Sam Pittman mentioned him actually as a pretty good player for them on that defensive line. They're athletic. I think they're linebackers. They move pretty well. The secondary, though, is where they've really had a hard time. So through the first 2 games, this is a group that has allowed, they've almost 700 yards passing, 8 touchdowns through the air, and they were just having breakdown after breakdown against Florida Atlantic. And Chad Lunsford, he talked about it after the game and said there was a lot of miscommunication on the back end. Maybe they're overthinking. They need to simplify things. When you start hearing that, you start to wonder about what's going on. So definitely, this could be a game where Arkansas could air it out a little bit and, develop some more confidence in KJ Jefferson, the passer, get Traylon Burks going, figure out kind of the pecking order behind him in that receiver room. But at the same time, you look at it and you think, man, if you're racking up 300-plus yards rushing against a team like Texas, why vary from that? So I'll be interested to see how it plays out.
I would say, Curtis, you're exactly right. Anytime a coach starts saying we got to start simplifying things, then it's over. It feels like it's just going down the tube if they're talking about simplifying things. So
definitely.
What do you think? What do you think is going to happen on this game? I mean, it's hard to get up after Texas, and then you're looking ahead a little bit to Texas A&M. I mean, it's a difficult spot to play a tricky team like this.
Yeah, it really is, and I think you said it well. It's kind of human nature to have a little bit of a letdown there, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of that early. Maybe a little bit of sluggishness, but in the end, I don't have a lot of concern that Arkansas is going to be able to figure it out, and I think pull away pretty comfortably. For me, the hope would be that they do that, and you get later into the second half, and maybe Arkansas is finally in a situation where they have a game just fully under control, and you can start to see some of those young guys. Maybe we can see some extended run from a Malik Hornsby, and some of the guys, some of your depth that you're going to need. We know by the end of the season, the SEC is usually a war of attrition. So, to be able to get some guys some reps and some confidence, that way you can rely on them a little bit more later in the season could be really important. This is one of the last opportunities Arkansas will have to do that. So hopefully they take care of business, and we can see some new faces out there.
All right, Curtis. Well, I think we covered it. Anything else you want to add? Anything else coming up with basketball that you might need to notify us on?
Well, no, not a lot else going on with basketball. I mean, it's going to be probably the last big visit weekend for a while here. Obviously, there's 3 games away from Fayetteville in a row on the weekends, but then they're going to be hitting it up with full practices here in a few weeks, and I think we're about 54, 55 days out from the start of the regular season, so it's right around the corner for sure. All
right, Curtis. Appreciate you, brother.
Yep. Talk to you next time.
All right, that's Curtis Wilkerson again. You can follow him at Kurt Wilkerson _ does a fantastic job covering the Razorbacks. So I want to jump into Keith Grayson now. Keith Grayson is forwarding me to an automatic voicemail. Here we go.
Hey, guys.
That's my line. How you doing, Keith?
I feel like I've been in like a prison yard brawl.
Well,
It's Thursday, and I sound like this. I had to point at my menu to order food because I could not talk for 2 days.
This is Keith. That's him throwing that megaphone. So Keith was in here in Fayetteville and storming the field and everything, and that actually did go through the uprights, the megaphone. Where did you get a megaphone, Keith?
So the last game that John L. Smith coached, I got on the field somehow and into his office in that same shirt, the sleeveless camo.
There it goes.
Yeah. I stole it fair and square in 2012, but I've never been able to get it into a game. And all the small children and the attorney general that was sitting next to me, I guess they probably wish that I didn't get it in the game either, but the internet was down, and I didn't have my mobile ticket. I couldn't get in my app, but everybody else had their ticket in my party. Mm-hmm. So I had to go to guest services. And I kept on thinking of things throughout the day. Like Eric Musselman puts up that tweet about, how they can sneak into the game. Well, apparently you can just go to guest services. Somebody has a real question in front of you while you're waiting on them. You just walk in the gate. So I got in without a ticket.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did. How do you think I got a megaphone in? All security guards are telling me I couldn't get that in.
Wow.
So I got in without a ticket.
Now I'm not even sure I should have you on.
Well, there's more. Trey, there's more.
What else? What else happened?
Well, no, I mean, I enjoyed the game thoroughly. I took offense to a lot of people. My season tickets are in the north end zone. I think that thing should be packed out. And I know that it's kind of a quieter area. And, the people around us, I feel like we brought it for the game. I never sat down. The people behind me had to stand up. A young man ripped his shirt off in half. It was. I feel like we did our part for that game. But, we scored 40 points on my 40th birthday. Yes. And we beat 40 acres.
Yeah.
And so – And there's a hog pod going into Texas week with Clay Henry on it, was talking about how his mom went out to a certain spot and filed some grass out. So I went out to the 40 and I got some turf in the back of my truck right now in a pot and some potting soil, and I'm planting that in my yard.
Where did you take turf on the 40? On the field? On the actual field?
Yeah, it was on the side.
Keith.
It was out of bounds.
This is not the last game of the season.
How much is turf though? I mean, if our grounds crew is worth anything, they can replace it. There's 20,000 people out there. I'm sure there was some other damage done.
Okay.
But anyway, it wasn't a big piece, but it's enough to grow. I mean, I'm going to grow it. I'm literally going to plant it in my yard. And listen, they had a university podcast with someone telling somebody, of course I'm going to have the idea in my head. It's basically Matt Zimmerman's fault for having Clay Henry on to give me the idea to begin with.
40th birthday.
It was a good time. And if you watch the video, that megaphone, I got that little kiss off the upright.
Yeah.
All of Cam Little.
I wasn't able to play that one from Twitter, but you did bank. I mean, if you think about it, all the weird stuff that happened, you turned 40, they scored 40 points. It's the 40 acres campus at Texas. You banked it in off the upright. You stole a chunk of grass, and you, even though you had tickets, you got in without a ticket and snuck in a megaphone. Is that right?
Yeah.
That pretty much. And
you
you smell. You sound horrible right now.
Perfect for radio or podcasting.
This is what happens when you party the way you did at 40. It's all you're now at the old age of youth.
What am I going to do? Not live my life?
No,
you got to live. And I mean, I'm with my mom, my best friend from grade school that I grew up with, and my bride to be. It was her first football game experience.
How did she like it? I mean, that's a.
Oh my God, she wants to go back. I mean, so we went from like, hey, we can only make it to one game this year. We got to figure out our travel schedule if we go back, to like she wants to go to every other home game now.
Mm-hmm. Now you got to tell her every game's like this. This is just how it always is. Did she storm the field with you?
Yeah. Well, she took a Sunday stroll. I ditched everybody. I was in the middle with Traylon Smith saying, like, you're from Arizona, I'm from Arizona. I came out here to kick it, man. So we got down.
Somebody on the board said you tossed him $100 and ran on the field. Is that true?
I did. So I didn't see that. I didn't see that message on the board. But so I tried to give the cameraman $100 to put me on ESPN. Mm-hmm. Apparently it was just a Jumbotron.
Yeah, I saw you on the Jumbotron. I saw you up there. So
there were some kids that I guess listened to the podcast, and I think they had an insane time too. Everything was memorable. So one of my favorite stories of John Daly is someone walked up to John Daly and was like, I'm a huge fan of you, or whatever, and he pulls out a wad of hundreds and just gives him $100 bill. And it's like, go buy yourself a steak dinner tonight or whatever. And so,
note to self: next time I see John Daly, tell him what a big fan I am.
Money.
Yeah.
So I took the money that I was going to give to the cameraman, and I gave it to the I guess he was a student at the school. He could be 16 or 22. I have no idea. But, we were talking all game too. And I was like, yo, you go have a good time tonight on me. So, anyway, man, it was memorable. And the thing is, it wasn't even that close. It was, the final score was 40-21. We downed it.
Yeah,
had four field goals.
It wasn't even as close. The good thing, though, go ahead.
Left one on the board. It could have been 70.
Yeah,
we could have put 70 on it.
Well, think about all the short field goals that they had too. I mean, just a few missed blocks here and there. But the good news of it is, though, Keith, is that was the game that night. Everybody was watching. Everybody was watching Arkansas and Texas. So everybody knows that it was not as close as the score indicated. Also, so that's good. So, Keith, what would you say that's just based on the way you're talking, and I know what my experience was too, would you say that was the best game, whole encompassing weekend experience for you since the 2011, I guess was that 2012, Cotton Bowl, where you became actually the disgraced former president and founder of the Arizona Razorback Club due to your actions?
Yeah, that was a good time. And I think – And that was I think they were different, but yes, you knew. I mean, going into the Cotton Bowl, we're gonna smoke, we're gonna pace Kansas State. Like there wasn't even a question. You ask everybody around, and I think why it was so cathartic this weekend, and so almost, you and I met up on Friday night. We're talking about the game, and you're saying, I asked you straight up, like, how do you picked them to score 31 points? A 19-year-old kid's going to come into this environment and put 31 up on Barry Odom in his second year in this defense, all those returning starters. Like, everybody I talked to had some sort of, all these older guys, not older, but I mean, just fans that, I hang with. I guess everybody's older tomorrow. But everybody, you'd ask them, what do you think is going to happen in the game? And they just kind of, I don't know, man. Like, just hope everybody has fun. That kind of mentality. It's like, I think it was so unexpected. Mm-hmm. But I mean, why would you expect anything less? I mean, at this point,
I also, when I was going 31, I was thinking, an offensive, accident or special teams also would get them too. I didn't think that Arkansas didn't have a chance to do. I thought they had a chance to win, but I don't know. I just, for some reason, picked Texas to win by 7, so I was wrong.
And I do apologize to everybody that was kind of around me. And I was, again, there's this pent up, nobody's been to a game in a minute, and like it was what's happened in the past year, and you just want to unleash. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where I was coming from.
And I carefully watched your video also before I had you on to make sure your megaphone landed safely on the ground without hitting someone in the head. Also,
I wrestled it away from a security guard. They thought I stole it, and I had to point like it's an old logo.
Did you tell them the statute of limitations for stealing megaphones? So it's rightfully yours
pretty
now.
Fast, man. As soon as I get loose in that open field, that's probably why I'm so sore, because I was running all around the field, like dead sprint.
Yeah.
I think my hand is still marked on number 98 from Texas's buttocks. I got him pretty good. I told him good game.
You just smacked some Texas player on the butt.
Well, that's how you do it in sports, right? You
right.
Congratulate them. Like, hey, good
team
game.
Players, not random fans coming out of the stands. What's good, Keith? I got to transition you to this game. This has been fantastic, but what's going to happen? What's going to happen Saturday? Because it's kind of a tricky spot to play a team like Georgia Southern.
You have so much influence on our fans that you're like, I don't know, it's a trap game, and I even said it before the season started, but now we're 2 games.
It's part of the reason I picked Texas to win, also, Keith, because I knew that I picked Arkansas to win and they wouldn't. I know how my mojo goes.
Oh, so this is all a reverse jinx.
It's always a reverse jinx. The whole thing is a reverse jinx.
Okay, well, now that you say that, is it still?
Oh, I jinxed the jinx.
but for real, okay. So let's walk through this. Mm-hmm. Who's going to let the team down? Is Sam Pittman going to let this team roll over against a non-conference Sun Belt team? Is Barry Odom going to do it? Are the 20 seniors that are coming back going to do it? Is Grant Morgan, who's a cyborg, like a human missile, like Hayden Henry, Jalen Catalon, they're going to let this team not show up on Saturday? That's the question people should be asking.
That's a good point.
It's different. It's different. Everybody points back. If you say Western Kentucky one more time, this has nothing to do. Sam Pittman has said that over and over. People bring up, like Bob Holt in the press conference, like, what do you think about this 3 years ago? He's like, I don't have anything to do about it. I wasn't here, bro. This is different. Should people not get that? This is different.
That's good.
Does everybody feel that?
No, I definitely feel things are different. There's no question about that. But I also know it's human nature that it's not going to be as electric as Texas, right? I mean, so you would expect at least a little bit. But if they continue
to from the fans,
if they continue to fly around the pile like they did on Saturday, then it doesn't matter. It won't matter. They'll be able to.
And this team reminds me. Georgia Southern does remind me. I like their offense. They remind me a lot of Coastal Carolina and what they're doing. Not as much downfield passing. I'm actually watching the New Orleans Bowl against Louisiana Tech right now, because I watch the other team kind of, not that I have anything to do with the game plan, but I want to know what we're walking into.
Yeah.
But I like their offense, and they're getting their quarterback that hasn't had anything to do with the first 2 games. They're getting him back from suspension.
Yeah.
So
5 starters return on the
Thanks.
offensive line.
Yeah, thanks for letting me. I wanted one thing for my birthday. The only thing that I wanted for my 40th birthday was to be on the walk and talk. And you waited in the stadium. You never came out of the stadium.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I explained it on the
scared.
last podcast. I was scared. That's what it was. I was afraid.
I was coming for you. I had that Blanton's in me, and I was fearless.
Well, it's not like a right after. I already explained why the walk and talk takes some time, because you got to go through press conferences, you got to write, you got to transcribe, you got to soak it all in, you got to get from place to place. It's a lot going on after the game. It's just the way it is. I don't want to sit in traffic the whole time when I could be working.
Well, thanks for having me on this.
Well, you sound better. I think we cleared your throat up a little bit. I think this was good for your throat.
I mean, I've been driving in a car for 19 hours from Heber Springs because I went down to my dad's and then came across country by myself. So I haven't really been talking to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Just sat down in my office for the first time in a week, and everything breaking loose. And of course, all I want to do is talk Razorback football.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you got a bell, ring it. Your best performance to date. Appreciate you for coming on the show. Happy birthday, brother.
45-17 Hogs.
45-17
Let's do the damn
Hogs.
thing. Later, player.
Thanks, bud. All right, everybody. Keith Grayson. See, that's why it's important to get the fan perspective on here. I always enjoy Keith's humor, and, I mean, borderline. I don't know if you can call him a vandal. Everybody was trampling the field. But it's always fun to talk to Keith. Get a little insight there. All right, we're going to go to your questions now, but before we do that, I want to remind you real quick, there's plenty of ways to watch and listen. Always tune in on Facebook Live. If you haven't subscribed to the page, then do so. Follow the page. Give it a thumbs up on this video. Like, share, comment, follow, all the good things. Also available on YouTube. Be sure to give us a thumbs up there. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hit the notifications bell so you're alerted anytime we upload new videos. And share it with your old papaw or your dad or whoever doesn't know how to access it. Let them know how to see all that, because I think they'll enjoy the show. Also available on Apple Podcasts. Throw us that 5-star review. Spotify, Stitcher, anywhere else you can think of to find your favorite podcast. We are there. All right, we're going to fly through these pretty quick here. The ranking won't mean anything unless the Hogs beat A&M. Yes, it will mean, Adrian Jones, it will mean that you have a 2:30 CBS matchup. But past that, you're right. Got to keep winning. Marco Giles says, I'm torn on all this attention now. Hope they handle it well. Yep, it is different winning the title, as they say. Not that Arkansas has won a title, but versus defending it. And Arkansas is a bit of a media darling right now. Handle it well. Let's see how they do. Hey, Trey, Hog fan alumni living in Seattle. Has the win over Texas changed your view on the overall win-loss total for the year? Yeah, it's changed them. I mean, I picked them to lose that game, so I would move it up to 7 or better. I don't know. I mean, it's not like Mississippi State, Ole Miss, Auburn. I guess LSU is kind of down a little bit, looks down. But for the most part, most of those schools, and LSU will bounce back. They got tons of athletes. I mean, it's not like it's gotten easy with the opponents. This Arkansas looks maybe a little bit better than we thought. If we sweep Texas, will he say they are second in the West? If they beat Texas A&M in Arlington, yeah, I think so. I think you might be able to say that confidently at that point. But still a lot of games to play. You got to go at Ole Miss. It's road games in the SEC are just difficult, and that's what Texas figured out the other day. Jim Taylor in Fresno. Trey, it's pistachio season again. Send me an address, and I'll hook you up. Danny and the gang. I am copying that right now. I got that opened up. All right, Jim, appreciate you. I'll take those pistachios. Kyle Smith, you have your answer. Yes, Keith Grayson did storm the field. You knew he did. I haven't stormed the field in 22 years myself. I was in the press box, but it was a great, awesome view. People got mad at me because I was like, it was a $100,000 fine. I said this on Twitter, and I was like, it's $250 next time. Maybe don't do that again. Just kind of like I meant it in that kind of voice, that kind of tone, and people were like, can't believe this take from you. It's got like tons of replies, and I mean, I was just a little surprised because I've obviously said several times how awesome it was, but it is $250,000. That's a lot of money. Oh, funny. Griffin Peoples trying to get me to spell Dixon Street again. Justin Starn says passing game should improve this week. Yeah, it's possible. As Curtis mentioned, their secondary has struggled a little bit, and again, we haven't seen them take the lid off Traylon Burks. And want to make sure Texas A&M remembers, give them something to look at there, that they can't just load the box on you. Ask Chad Morris how it's going at Allen High School. Not that well. I think they lost, Adrian. I know they lost the second game, which ended their 84-game winning streak, and it was the first time they ever lost in their new $60 million stadium that's been there for a while now. Chuck Bendergrass says, do you believe Arkansas works on the pass game this week? I believe KJ needs to work on his timing with receivers. Yeah, I mean, it's not like they stopped doing that. It's just they haven't had great timing. But again, you're running for 7.1 yards to carry. It's kind of hard to stop doing that. Jalen Catalon about to shut that running game down along with Hayden Bumper and Grant, says Will Lennox. It's interesting. It's a different kind of football. It's assignment football, not just reacting. Will Lennox says news on Miles Slusher. I think we could see a good bit of Miles Slusher Saturday. Ridgeway and Zach Williams are dominant. Zach Williams had a good game. He'll start if they go with a four-man front. But will they go four-man? Will they go three-man? I mean, last week it made all the sense in the world to go with a four-man front, but the three-man really, really worked. So we'll see. Nathan E. Allen says, you see the shout-out and the walk and talk from Josh Pate on late kick. Yeah, I did. Actually, I think we maybe picked up a lot of subscribers because of that on the YouTube channel. But I did see that, Nathan. I was actually watching it live. He does a great job. If you don't watch Josh Pate late kick live, you should. He does a great job covering all aspects and knows what he's talking about, not just like, I got to cover all these teams. I mean, like, he does his research. Norman Hunt says, okay, don't know why they censored my comment about CBS. I'm not sure. Steve Bagwell says, I just checked and it's showing Alabama, Florida. Razorback Stadium needs more beer tubs than just the two on the south deck. When is it split broadcast? Maybe it's split broadcast. Wes Taylor says, is that $1 a month? It's $1 for your first month. It's $1 for your first month at HawgSports. Okay, so it's a trial period. Or you can do 30% off for the first year. But after that first month, if you sign up for the monthly, after that first month, you like it, you decide you're going to keep it, which is, I think, $9.95 a month after that. But you also get Paramount Plus for free, which is $100 a year. The commercial-free version, the good version of Paramount Plus, which includes, all the on-demand stuff from Paramount, CBS, Comedy Central, BET, Smithsonian, Nat Geo, like a ton of different, maybe not Nat Geo, I think that's Disney Plus. But anyway, a ton, I think History Channel maybe, but a ton of different other networks, and Paramount, all in there together. And it's free for as long as you're subscribed to HawgSports. So if you're subscribed for the next 3 years, it's $300 of free Paramount Plus you get after your 1 month. So after that promo's done, then you're eligible for that. So a lot of great options there. Oh, gotcha. I see what you're saying here. Josh Grubb, what was said by Sark? I heard he kind of downplayed our power after the game in his post. I mean, he did give some credit, but overall, we made mistakes and stuff like that, which is obvious. That's what happens in football. But it wasn't exactly true. Arkansas just beat them, out-physicaled them. They just beat them. I mean, they beat them. They were more physical, more aggressive the whole time. The environment created a lot of that too. PTSD towards each game, yeah. I mean, I'm dealing with that too, obviously. Wes Murray says he agrees with Curtis. It's going to be a big game for KJ and hope to see Hornsby the entire second half. I'd love to see a lot of Malik Hornsby also in this game because of, Arkansas getting in and getting out. Keith's on Hogs Plus. How do we match up against A&M? I haven't even looked at that yet, but, I mean, obviously losing Hanks King is a pretty big deal. J.R. Wallace has a couple of questions. Why is Hudson Henry, a highly touted tight end, struggling so much to make an impact on the offense? I think they like what Blake Kern has brought. Hayden has had some injury issues, and even fairly recently. Excuse me, not Hayden. You have Hudson. Sorry, I always do that. I called Hayden Hudson the other day, and asked him a question about the Texas defense. I've said it before, but you name all your kids with an H, and they all play Razorback football. It makes it hard. Also, do we just not throw to the tight end position under Briles? Is it a lack of talent? I don't think it's that. I mean, it's just they like what he has. I mean, they like what Kern has brought to the table. But I think we'll see a good bit of Hudson at some point too. Nothing like bringing in fresh running backs against a tired defense. I mean, like a lot of credit has been given to the Razorback running backs, and they did a great job, obviously. But the offensive line is just so under control. And, I mean, they just look clean and polished. They've done a great job blocking up front. A&M's defense looks legit, says Yancey Long. Do the Hogs have a legit shot at 8 wins? They have a shot at it. I'm going 7 right now. Eric O'Neill says $100,000 well spent. Eric O'Neill says, is Grant Morgan going to be back from the injury? Sam Pittman said he practiced Tuesday, Wednesday, and was going to practice Wednesday. Practiced Monday, Tuesday, and was going to practice Wednesday. That's what he said. Having said that, I could see Grant Morgan sitting this one out. Or maybe a sit out unless we absolutely need you kind of deal. Yep. In regards to $250,000 fine, it could go a long way. In terms of keeping an assistant coach, you're absolutely right, Norman. Or Mark. Norman Hunt says, after we finally beat Texas A&M, Glenn Stroud says the Razorbacks are going to have to watch lower their head on tackles. Yeah. Although I think that maybe there was like a meeting and they're like, hey, look, unless this is like egregious, we're not going to call it as much because we didn't see it much that last game. And there were 2 opportunities they could have called targeting. Easy could have called it on Hayden Henry and Jackson Woodard. Both of them were, by definition, 100% targeting. So I'm wondering, like maybe they're being a little bit more lax on it. Maybe the first weekend they wanted to, send a message. I don't know. You still have to throw the flag. I just think the penalty sucks. The flag doesn't suck. The penalty does. The punishment of ejecting a guy, especially when you miss it so often. Like half the times you miss it. Judah Honey says, what do you find a challenge for the Arkansas defense this week? Just playing assignment football, playing against this option attack it's just a different way to play defense that you have to respect the option. Kevin Mercer says, hoping to see Carthage, Texas, Takias Crawford play this week. Yeah, that'd be nice. It'd be nice to see all those guys get some action because that means you took care of business in the first half. Steve Harper says, if we can get through Georgia Southern without a letdown, I think the Hogs can line up with Texas A&M. It's going to be a fun weekend. I'll be there. I'll be in Arlington. Will you be there? I think it's got a chance to be really electric again. It's kind of dwindled down the last few years, but I think it's got a chance. All right, before we get out of here, one more time, plenty of ways to watch and listen. Facebook Live, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. Throw us a 5-star review. Throw us a thumbs up. Follow the page. Subscribe. Hit the notifications bell. Let us know what to think. Share. All those good things. Getting a little tongue-tied at the end of the show. All right. I started the show kind of tongue-tied. Need to do a little red leather, yellow leather. All right, everybody. Appreciate you for your questions. Thanks to Curtis Wilkerson for providing his insight on Razorback basketball and the Georgia Southern defense. And appreciate Keith Grayson for sharing his Razorback game day experience on his 40th birthday with Arkansas scoring 40 points against the 40 Acres team. A lot of cool stuff there. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you with the walk and talk after the game on Saturday. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.